top story, the crime crackdown in D.C. This is new video from overnight showing a police checkpoint along the busy 14th Street corridor. Most of the more than dozen officers were police, but ICE agents were also there. People lined both sides of the street and yelled at officers, some using profanity. Well, there's also a large presence of U.S. Marshals stationed along the National Mall right now. Army officials say the mission is to not only be visible, but also aid federal and local law enforcement. And it's not just the National Guard patrolling. There are new photos of U.S. Marshals working with D.C. police. We've seen FBI and Homeland Security agents as well. Now, this major operation also includes immigration, and this is new video of ICE agents taking a man into custody in D.C. We've reached out to the agency for more information on this arrest. ICE also arrested this food truck vendor along the National Mall. They say the man is in the country illegally from Peru, and ICE says he will be detained until a deportation decision is made.
Well, part of President Trump's crime emergency order includes clearing homeless encampments. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirms most encampments on federal land have already been removed, with just a few remaining, and they are expected to be cleared out this week. President Trump says it's about making the city safe and beautiful, even suggesting people could be relocated far outside the Capitol. But housing advocates warn there are few shelter beds available, and they fear many will be displaced or even incarcerated. For some, this is about cleaning up the streets, and for others, it's a dangerous push that treats homelessness as a crime.
Moving people from place to place, far from the outreach workers that they've been working with, far from the meal programs that they attend, will just interrupt services and really further traumatize people. And so our street outreach team at Miriam's Kitchen continues to go out. They were out last night into the evening hours, and they were out early this morning, including right as we speak, making sure people have what they need, the information, connection to resources or shelter if that's what they choose. We're providing mobile phones to folks.
Now, the most recent city numbers show the homeless count at just over 5,000 adults and children. And with this crackdown just getting started in D.C., Montgomery County leaders are sounding the alarm, saying this could be a long, challenging fall for them.
And as the crime crackdown continues, 7 News asked people what they think and what their communities need. Here's Carl Willis with that story.
7 News returned to Southeast D.C. Wednesday after community leaders questioned if Ward 8 would get the same attention as other parts of the city during the federal takeover.
Honestly, over here, I haven't seen anything. Honestly, over here, we haven't seen anything. I mean, it's been all the talk.
They mainly downtown by the monument, the Capitol. They're down that area more. I mean, I haven't seen them in the neighborhoods, but we do see unmarked cars more in the neighborhoods.
Wednesday night, as we've seen throughout the summer, there was a heavy police presence in Navy Yard. The White House saying police surpassed 100 arrests after arresting 43 people Tuesday night and took at least 24 guns off the street. But back here along Pennsylvania Avenue in Southeast, those who live and work here say they haven't seen much change. And for some, that's just fine.
True D.C. people that live here and love our neighborhoods, we take care of our neighborhoods. There's good and bad anywhere that you go.
We spoke with a security guard who said he has seen plainclothes officers and law enforcement in vests checking around businesses.
To me, I just think it's sad. If anything, you need to be out here trying to stop the juveniles for stealing cars and things like that.
Do you think it'll make any lasting positive impact?
The crime is already going down, statistically. I mean, crime is going to happen no matter what city you're in. Good and bad crime is going to happen. There's criminals everywhere you go, all across the country.
Well, President Trump is pushing back against reports that the district's crime rate is at a 30-year low. The mayor, police chief, and D.C. Attorney General have all repeatedly stood by that figure. But on Truth Social last night, President Trump claimed, quote, these are only the official statistics released by corrupt city officials. The real crime rates are probably 5 to 10 times what has been reported.
I'm John Rogers here at the Alert Desk. Well, as we've been reporting, D.C. police, they do make all their crime statistics public, and it consistently shows, as you see from the green arrows, that crime is down across the board over the past year. They update these numbers every day, practically. They show this comparison. They update every night. You can see here, violent crime total down 26% compared to this time last year. I even pulled up a chart from the FBI. Hopefully you can see this here in this image. You see this graph here. Now, 2021 is kind of an exception. There was a lack of data for that year, but practically for the most part, you can see around here it's starting to trend downwards over 2024. Back in January, the U.S. Attorney's Office announced that in 2024, total violent crime in D.C. was down 35% from the year prior. So that's where that figure's coming from that the president's talking about. And that's not all. In 2024, violent crime was actually the lowest it had been in over 30 years, again, from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So officially, the crimes have been showing that trends are going downward. Forgive me, the trends have been showing that crime is going down. We're going to keep tracking these numbers and how they're impacted with this increased federal presence in town.
Well, Wards 7 and 8 have the highest number of violent crimes in D.C. In fact, 60% of the city's 100 homicides so far have happened there. It seems logical the federal police takeover would send reinforcements to patrol those most dangerous parts of the district. So we sent I-Team investigator Scott Taylor there to see if that's happening.
Ward 7 and Ward 8 lead D.C. in violent crime and homicide. Both are home to large U.S. parks, which are patrolled by the U.S. Park Police. It kind of makes sense that U.S. Park Police take some of their officers here at Fort Circle Park in Ward 7 and start to stretch out onto the streets. Here's the boundary, here's the park, and here's Ward 7. So the big question is, will the feds take their officers deeper into D.C. on patrols? The I-Team wanted to ask Ward 8 Councilman Trayon White and Ward 7 Councilman Wendell Felder what they think, but we couldn't find them, and their offices didn't respond to our requests for interviews, so we asked the folks who live here. Do you think it's a good idea for U.S. Park Police to put some of their officers out here on the streets in Ward 7 to do some patrols?
I think so, sir. I like Ward 7 better than Ward 8. You know, I've been around here about 26, 27 years.
Is it dangerous here, do you think, or not?
Oh, I say it's Wild Wild West.
Last month in Ward 8, a 3-year-old girl was shot to death while sitting with her family in a car parked outside her house. A tragedy President Trump mentioned during his press conference on the federal takeover Monday morning. Angela Wigglesworth grew up in Southeast and now owns a nail salon.
It doesn't matter to me if it's MPD, if it's Capitol Police, because I grew up in Southeast D.C., if it's FBI. Community policing needs to be a part of this. If you have police officers, MPD or not, and they don't know the community, there's going to be problems.
The U.S. Park Police didn't return our calls either. But if this federal takeover to stamp out crime in the district doesn't come to Ward 7 and 8, you have to wonder, why not? For the I-Team, Scott Taylor, 7 News.
And the increased law enforcement presence in parts of the city means that we could potentially see a higher number of arrests made in the coming hours. So we wanted to know, are the Juvenile Detention Center and the D.C. jail able to handle the influx? And the short answer is no. The D.C. auditor released a report stating that the city needed a new jail immediately because the current facility is dangerous, overcrowded, and understaffed. 7 News spoke with the woman responsible for improving the district's criminal and justice systems.
You mentioned if more juveniles are arrested, just the space to hold them just does not exist right now.
I don't know that this order can be executed without detrimental impacts. We know that, back during the pandemic, the U.S. Marshals Service pulled a lot of people out of the D.C. jail because of conditions there. And we know that if someone's being charged in federal court by the U.S. Attorney, some of those people are being held 2 hours away in Virginia, which is not an ideal situation.
And she went on to say that the Youth Services Center is also overcrowded. She tells us the facility has a capacity of about 89 people, but the numbers have been more than 100 for several months.
Well, the U.S. Attorney for the district is calling on the council to change 3 laws she says are making the city less safe. 7 News reporter Tom Rousey breaks down what those laws are and speaks with a council member.
U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pirro wants the City Council to change 3 laws. One of them was passed in 2018. It eliminates mandatory minimum sentences for defendants under 25, except for homicide and sexual abuse cases. Another one she wants them to change, one in which defendants under 25, when the crime was committed, can ask for a reduced sentence after 15 years. Also, there's one that allows criminals to have many of their convictions sealed from public view. Now, at a press conference on Tuesday. Pirro said those laws passed by the council over the last decade are too focused on criminal defendants instead of victims. We reached out to every member of the council to ask if they were willing to change any of those laws. Ward 2 Councilmember Brooke Pinto has taken a leading role in passing bills aimed at reducing crime, and her office referred me to these comments she made on Monday.
I am always looking at our laws as they exist today and making sure that they make sense for our reality today. And so as we head into the session, I'm always open-minded to collaborate with my colleagues and our federal partners.
Representatives of most members of the D.C. Council did not get back to us. In the newsroom, Tom Rousey, 7 News.
Well, 7 News has been reporting on D.C.'s Youth Rehabilitation Act for more than a year now. Last July, in the wake of Republican Congressman Byron Donalds' first attempt to get the Crimes Act through Congress, which would have in part ended reduced youth sentences and sealed criminal records for adult offenders ages 18 to 24. Now, we asked the mayor if she would submit her own legislation to the council, and take a listen.
Would you ever consider introducing legislation that would limit reduced sentencing?
I think it bears consideration, but I think the place to do it is in this building with the members of the council. I think it was expanded at a time where we didn't have broad consideration, and that's not something I've been supportive of.
Well, at the time, she said it was up to the council, which has not considered that change to this point. So we're asking you to weigh in. Should adults 18 to 24 years old receive youth sentences? Yes or no? To answer, all you have to do is scan this QR code on your screen. And so far, take a look at this. An overwhelming majority of you are voting no, 89%. Of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on the results throughout the day. This is new video from the National Mall this morning, where additional National Guard troops were deployed while you were sleeping. ABC News confirmed the idea is for residents and tourists to wake up to see the site of a significant military presence. Meantime, we're entering the fourth full day of the president's historic federal takeover of the D.C. Police Department. So here are 3 things to know this morning. First, the White House says since the operation started Monday, police have arrested more than 100 people, including 43 people Tuesday night, which is nearly double the amount of people arrested the night before. More than 24 illegal guns were taken off the street Tuesday night. Number 2, the White House says nearly 1,500 officers participated in Tuesday night's operations, including 750 uniformed MPD officers, as well as federal law enforcement. And number 3, while you were sleeping, federal agents teamed up with D.C. police to set up a traffic checkpoint in a busy area of the city. John Rogers is following the overnight developments from the Alert Desk. John?
Yeah, Adriana, I got the video right here from overnight. I want to show you this. So there are protesters lining up the streets of this checkpoint along 14th Street. So as many of you know, this is a very popular area for nightlife. More than a dozen D.C. police officers were joined by ICE agents as they stopped cars. Some of the agents were wearing face masks, as you saw there. But while all this was going on, people were lined up on both sides of the street and they were yelling at the officers. Some were using profanity. But overall, the protests did remain peaceful. D.C. police, they described this operation as routine, but many nearby residents said they've never seen anything like this before.
President Trump says that he would like to continue his control over D.C. for longer than the 30-day statute. He made those comments during his trip to the Kennedy Center yesterday, but he didn't specify if this would also include the National Guard. Take a listen.
So we're going to need a crime bill that we're going to be putting in, and it's going to pertain initially to D.C. We're going to use it as a very positive example. And we're going to be asking for extensions on that, long-term extensions, because you can't have 30 days.
Now, the president has 2 options to extend that 30-day timeline. Congress would have to make a joint resolution or declare a national emergency. The president's plan could run into trouble in the Senate, where Democrats could block the bill using procedural rules. And legal experts express skepticism on the grounds of calling a national emergency.
Well, now that the National Guard has boots on the ground in D.C., President Trump is shifting his focus to homeless encampments. For months, we have told you about his repeated demands to D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser to clear them out to make D.C., quote, safe and beautiful again. Well, now as part of this historic federal takeover, the president is handing down an ultimatum to the homeless encampments: clear out or police will arrest you. Meantime, faith and community leaders slept outside last night outside the White House as a gesture of solidarity for the homeless in D.C. Reverend Patrick Mahoney believes this is a particularly painful reality for veterans who, after serving our country, now find themselves among the homeless. Organizers say this will also be a time for people to pray together.
And meantime, this morning, Montgomery County leaders say they are bracing for a possible influx of homeless residents as the Trump administration clears encampments in D.C. 7 News reporter John Gonzalez joins us now with what they are doing to prepare. John, good morning.
Montgomery County Executive Mark Elridge and his team say it's not a question of if more people will show up at Maryland shelters, but when. President Trump's crackdown on homeless encampments like this one here at Washington Circle near GW is now underway, with at least 70 sites already cleared by the National Park Service. His administration says those living on the streets will be offered shelter, addiction treatment, or mental health services, but if they refuse, they could face jail time. County Executive Elridge tells 7 News that could create a dangerous ripple effect in the DMV. Officials say the county's largest shelter is already full, and drop-in centers and food programs are stretched thin.
We are actively engaged with our community partners who do lots of work in this space to understand exactly what's happening on the ground and how people are going to vote with their feet, as it were, whether they're going to choose to leave the district itself and come to places like Montgomery County or Northern Virginia, and what that will look like and for how long and what their needs will be.
Speculating at this point because there's so much uncertainty about the plans coming from the federal government to move people out of the district and how they would do that, where they would do that.
Outreach teams have been told to track how many new clients are arriving from D.C. daily. Elridge says while the county will do whatever it can to help, he is calling on the federal government to put up more funding. Reporting in Northwest Washington, John Gonzalez, 7 News.
Thank you, John. And President Trump is pushing back against reports the district's crime rate is at a 30-year low. The mayor, police chief, and D.C. Attorney General have all repeatedly stood by that figure. But on Truth Social, the president claims, quote, these are only the official statistics released by corrupt city officials. The real crime rates are probably 5 to 10 times what has been reported. And 7 News is on your side. We want to give you an updated look at the latest crime data directly from D.C. Police. On the left there, those are the number of crimes so far this year. And if you look way at the bottom, there is a red arrow that is pointing up. That is arson. And that currently is the only category where there has been a slight increase compared to this time last year. Total crime has dropped by about 7%. Violent crimes, they are down 26%.
Well, this morning we are hearing from people who live and work in Georgetown who say they're surprised about the surge of federal law enforcement officers there. Many people say it would be better to send officers to neighborhoods with more violent crime.
The times they're patrolling, you see a lot of friends, families walking with each other. It's warm. It's a lot of just shopping, you know. This is not the community it's necessary for.
They had absolutely nothing to do in Georgetown but just walk around.
7 News asked the White House why officers are being deployed to Georgetown instead of higher crime neighborhoods. A White House official tells us 19 multi-agency teams have been deployed to all 7 police districts. Well, 7 News is on your side. Of course, we will continue to bring you the latest updates on President Trump's federal takeover, both on air and online at WJLA.com.